September the 13th, 2019. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have just let in our eager customers on our website for the iPhone pre-sale launch. Immediately, the traffic is heavy, and we are thrilled about the huge interest. But suddenly, the web shop crashes. It's down, people are shouting. It takes us 45 minutes to get it up and running again. An incident of this kind is devastating for any company. But for us, with 70% of our customers using Apple devices, this is a disaster. We lost 20% of the total estimated pre-sales. The journey started with a purpose to bring the tre.se code home. A lot of things were really troublesome at our place at that time. The online channel had been outsourced to an external web bureau for years, and we also worked with an external UX design firm. 2 different departments at Tre were the clients, where consumer market was responsible for the web shop, and the IT department was steering the self-service dashboard that we called Tre. Almost all functionality for the web shop was built directly in the front-end layer for avoiding dependency to the many back-end systems. But placing so much heavy logic on the front-end side is far from best practice, since it slows down the performance and the code turns hard to maintain and scale. And for the self-service part, IT built the backend and delivered APIs to the web bureau. And this setup was better from a technical perspective, but very slow way of working, since it was more of a waterfall method applied. So we were 3, or actually even 4, in this marriage, working more or less in silos, where Tre wanted to push as much as possible into every requirement for the web shop. We were willing to pay for new features, but not so interested in maintenance work. There was not much time or money spent on cleaning up the code, and in the end, also the patchwork stopped, since any changes would risk destroying too much. The webshop finally became a logic-heavy front-end monster. And in addition to that, the webshop was integrated with a replicated database that never was in sync with the original one. It was a bit chaotic. I must say that our outsourcing partners weren't bad. They made what they were asked to do. But Tre was not the best customer, having big trouble with knowing how to order and also taking many shortcuts, turning out to be devastating detours. And this setup was going on for years, and it cost a lot of money. The code was super messy, the performance slow, and with that followed, of course, a bad customer experience. We really needed to take control over the situation for being able to create the omnichannel experience that Tre wanted. And in 2018, it was decided that we should bring tre.se home, which means building everything in-house, both in terms of front-end and back-end development and design. We wanted to have it all in our own hands. So, Pia, can you describe how this work started? It was quite
needed front-end competence. First, a front-end architect and a front-end lead developer were recruited, and they started to find out which platforms, which frameworks, and also which tools we should use. The team manager continued to recruit more front-end developers and organize the way of working.
But at what end did you start building the features then?
In January 2019, one product team started to build Tre. After the summer, in August, another product team started to build the first flow for the web shop. What we mean with the flow is how a customer enters the tre.se and finds its way to buy something in a couple of steps. In this first flow, it was a phone with a subscription. And this first flow was launched after 5 months. After this, another team at the same time started to build reusable CMS components. These components are very important and made it possible for the web editors to create content for tre.se, and especially the most important page, the start page. We went live with the start page in May and gradually gained more visitors, allowing the old start page at EpiServer to be shut down after a week.
Okay. Were there any other features on the to-do list as well?
Yes, we also built a chat with the bank ID identification, which replaced the existing one. The first version was launched in April. It was a huge improvement for the customer to be able to identify themselves. Now they could have some more specific and personal support from the customer support agent.
And what about the web shop? What happened more in that?
The webshop team continued to build flow by flow. For example, purchase subscription without buying a mobile phone, several support for different campaigns, and also flow for all the business customers.
So we built all these features in about 10 months. How was that even possible?
The decision was made.
Okay.
We needed to be done before the upcoming iPhone launch in September 2020. It was a matter of attitude, I would say, commitment and excellent teamwork. The strong culture of Tre was very present at this time. All the team members felt energized and excited by the transformation and wanted to challenge what was even possible, and of course being champions. We were helping each other with everything, being great buddies.
Okay. We have mentioned the iPhone launch a couple of times. Why is the iPhone launch such a hyped event, Daniel?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of phone manufacturers out there. Each of them has their own. Apple has a massive market in Sweden, and they are so good on creating hype for these product launches, which is why Tre wants to be part of that hype and work together with them on that excitement and buzz they're creating. They already spend millions on these launches, and Tre, we want to capitalize on that, which is why we want to sell as much phones and phone plans or subscriptions in a very short amount of time. Which is why when you enter our website on the first week during one of these launches, you're going to find very good deals. As a matter of fact, last year's iPhone launch, our web shop went up by 85% on the transactions during that day. That was a huge day for us.
That's important. I have noticed that many people also want to buy the latest iPhone immediately when it's released. How come?
Yeah, the hype surrounding this type of launches, it's quite an insane phenomenon, I must say. Like, people even queue outside Apple stores just to be one of the first one to have hands-on the latest device that year. We see this sort of level of excitement reflected on our website traffic before, during, and after the launch. In 2019 launch, the website traffic peaked so much that the site couldn't handle it and went down for 45 minutes. That's a huge problem for any kind of business, especially on the first hour of sales, which is the critical one. But this is why in 2020 we have developed a bulletproof solution that it makes us have these launches a bit more smooth and relaxed. Now all the teams that work on these launches are able to test the site hours before and make sure that everything works as expected. We can test the purchase flow, and we have even caught 1 or 2 bugs right before they've been sent to production. So now we can relax, grab a coffee, and take a bit more smooth time.
So what were the business requirements to implement for the iPhone launch 2020 then?
Yeah, we had a bit of them sent to us in advance. The first one was to have a countdown on the start page. It was quite important to have this countdown because it is part of the hype that we want to follow on Apple to create. The countdown will go down until 2 o'clock, which is when the sale was about to start. The second one was to have the website built and ready with the Apple devices and their pricing hours before the launch and shared internally on different teams to be tested. The third one was, of course, to think about security. We couldn't afford to leak any of this data in production. Especially Apple has very strict rules about this, and also Tre businesses. We didn't want to show what kind of pricing we were going to offer beforehand. And lastly, of course, the most important one, no downtime. We need to solve this problem and be able to handle all the traffic this time.
So when did you start implementing these specific requirements for the iPhone launch then?
Yeah, well, that was quite a fun story. We were trying to pick the right solution, and we did not know which one was going to be the best one. And that takes time. We were about 3 people leading this initiative. And by the time that we decided, okay, we need to change the whole architecture of tre.se, and at the same time, the framework that we're using it was a bit late. I mean, the iPhone launch was expected in September that year, and we started doing this in June. So I remember our product owner, she was not having the best time of her life. Of course, every stand-up, every morning, it was the same question. Are we going to make it, guys? Are we going to make it? And I mean, I don't blame her. Everyone was very nervous.
Yeah, there was quite a short amount of time. Can you explain to us in a very, understandable way how this, what this solution looks like today?
Yes, I'll go very basic. So first of all, let's understand how a website works. Every time a customer or a visitor grabs their phone or their computer and types tre.se on their browser, it will request 3 main files, which is the main files that a website needs to exist. It's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. Those files live somewhere in a server, in this case, a server that we own, and will be returned back to your device, and you will be able to see tre.se as it is. So now that we know how a website works, roughly, we can... Everyone is expert now. We can revisit the kind of architecture that we had in 2019. So we had an architecture called server-side rendering. What happens here is that when a visitor types on their computer tre.se, it will make a request to this server and say, hey, do you have these files for me? And the server will be like, wait a minute, I need to bake them first. And in order to bake them, I need ingredients, right? So what kind of ingredients is data? So the server will gather the data for you first, and it will probably contact our CMS, or content management system, which is Contentful. Gather, let's say, give me all the phone devices you have here. Here you go. Then it would, at the same time, probably talk to a database and say, can you give me the pricing of those devices as well? Oh, yes, here you go. Once the server has gathered all that data for you, it will bake those files for you and be returned to your computer where you'll be able to see the site. Well, we can see there's a point of failure here. What happens if one of these systems doesn't answer properly, or it doesn't have the data as we want it to have the data? What happens if the database is down or it has too many users at the same time? Then the files will be incomplete when they are in the baking process and will be sent to you in an incomplete state, which is usually when you see the website completely white or loading forever, or maybe there's no devices at all. I don't know. So we needed to get rid of this bottleneck. And in order to do that, we migrated to a different architecture called static site generation. What that means is that when, once again, the visitor goes to their computer, types tre.se on the browser, and requests those files on one of our servers, the server will be like, oh, wait a minute. As a matter of fact, I have them ready for you. They've been previously generated, and we had made sure that the data is as we wanted, fully complete. So the server will just grab them and drop them back to you to your site. So we make sure that the site will always be working as expected. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That sounds really smart, but aren't there any drawbacks of this kind of solution?
Yes, of course. There's always pros and cons when picking this type of solutions, and this is probably why it took us some time to actually decide, okay, we're going for this one. One of the drawbacks on static site generation is when you have to change any content on the site. Because, let's say, one of our web editors needs to update the pricing of one of our phone devices. So what's going to happen is that new files will be generated for the whole tre.se. But this can be a very expensive process in terms of time, because a website such as big as ours has not only 3 files, it has quite many. So we needed to get rid of this new bottleneck that we just introduced, of course. And we solved this with a solution called incremental builds. What that does is that it only builds the files that have changed, which it will reuse the ones that hasn't changed and just make a new bundle and have it available for the visitors.
But if we needed these static files on beforehand, does that mean that we had 2 versions of tre.se at this point of time?
Yeah, I mean, during the iPhone launch in 2020, we had in tre.se available to the public the website with the countdown. And that website did not have any knowledge of the Apple devices that we were about to release, because we didn't want to leak any of this data, of course. So we had to build a different version that was shared internally. And we knew that this exact version was the one that was going to be in production at 2 o'clock. So when we went live at 2 o'clock, basically we swapped the 2 versions. And the one available with the Apple devices was available to the public at tre.se, and the other one was archived. So we knew that the version that is out there is the one that we have tested. So it was like proven that it was going to work. So picture this. I mean, we wanted to never automate this because we wanted to have full control of. We were a bit panicked on that. But picture this. We were at the office building that day. Everyone was so stressed. And I just wanted to get over it. Like, okay, it's 2 o'clock, right? So clock is ticking and we're getting close to there. Someone starts playing We Will Rock You on a speaker at quite loud volume. It was okay. So people start gathering around my computer screen, since I was the one pressing that magic button exactly 4 seconds before 2 o'clock, as we have practiced previously. Many times.
That must have been quite a nervous situation.
Yes, it was. Yes, especially since we were the pioneers of taking ownership of the code in-house of tre.se. And this was our first major release. I mean, failure was not on the table. We needed to prove that we were capable of solving this time. So, as a matter of fact, I have a video of that day where we're... We can fix it. Let's see. There's always technical problems.
There we go.
We have a video of that day where we're comparing our website with our competitors and also with our colleagues from Tre Denmark on the top right, and even Apple. So we're on the top left, and our 3 competitors, which you all know very well. We have a few here. So this video will show the last 15 seconds before the launch, and you will see how the website swaps automatically without the user needing to actually reload the browser. So the Apple devices will be available instantly. So can we play it? Yeah. So yeah, this was quite stressful, and then going on the 4-second mark, I press the button because it takes a few seconds to be out. And there we go. There's a swap and the hyperserver.
Yeah, wasn't that beautiful, wasn't it? Yeah. But what would you say, Daniel, were the key factors for this success?
Yeah, well, I would say communication was one of the first ones. We all knew what needed to be done. And we held several meetings in advance and tried to work in synergy towards the same goal. The culture. I mean, everyone was so eager for this to happen and willing to help. People from other teams was asking also, how can I help and be involved in this? And that was a really good feeling. Trust. We were trusted to do what we are best at doing. Tre put their faith on us, and they knew that we were working on the best interest of the company. And teamwork. We held several meetings, as I said, and the collaboration between so many departments in the organization was so huge that it's something that I've never seen before.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing.
Yeah.
But after this successful iPhone launch, could you then finally breathe out, Pia, and relax, just like The Simpsons?
Well, we could take one deep breath. The foundation was now in place, but it was no time for rest. We needed to start focusing on building new features for the business immediately. They had recently developed a new product concept, Tre Flexibel, and it was an extensive work to implement support for this in quite a short time.
And what about Tre? What happened there?
Tre, the further development of Tre had been going on in parallel with the web shop development, but also here, new requirements from the stakeholder were prioritized, which meant that we didn't have time to rebuild all the functionality that was left on the EpiServer as soon as we wanted. The UX and the UI had been changed, and the consequences for Tre were that the look and feel differed depending on which page you were visiting, since some parts of Tre still were on the old EpiServer.
But this was during the pandemic, and you, as everybody else, worked remotely. Was it hard?
I think most of the team members were quite fine with working from home. We got big screens and comfortable chairs to increase the ergonomics. Parts of the team knew each other from before the pandemic, but it was harder for those who were recruited during this time and hadn't even met the teammates physically yet.
Yeah, that was a tough time, and I guess we all have experience of that. But how agile were you at this time?
As a matter of fact, our teams were not so agile. We struggled finding a good way of working, and that was a remain from before, I would say. The product teams had a quite high turnover of people. We tried to work in an agile way, but without any real guidance. We had stand-ups, refinements, planning, and retros, but there was no much of a real agile work, or being agile. The three product teams worked on their own, without much collaboration, and that didn't improve the situation either.
So what did you do then to change the situation?
During the spring 2021, we had a large workshop, remote of course, discussing a new potential organization and also way of working. We were all aware of the significant improvements we could bring to our teams, but it was a huge challenge to change this when we still worked from home. Everyone felt quite safe in the product teams, and the common opinion was, I would say, to stay as is.
But later you got some help from an agile coach to do some real changes.
Yes. In June, finally, a couple of months later, an agile coach joined the online team to work with us and really help us to a better way of working. After the summer, when we finally started to get back to the office, the agile coach instantly involved all product teams in workshops to find out how to work from now on. First step was to create the so-called work agreement. He did an excellent job with teaching us about different ceremonies and what makes a product team being agile for real. We had also a lot of discussions about how to form the teams and what kind of resources should be in the teams.
And this also resulted in a new and quite innovative collaboration. Can you tell us?
That's true. With these insights, a closer collaboration started with the online team at the consumer market department, containing product owners, web editors, UX designers, and data analysts. The concept Online United was created to emphasize the importance of doing this together, that we really need each other. We continue the upskilling process for both online teams with more practical exercises, like how to write smart stories, poker planning estimation, story mapping, and much more. All this in parallel, of course, with delivering business features to the business.
Busy days, I guess.
Yes.
But was there only work on the agenda, or did you try to merge these two online teams in some other ways?
Yes. During this change, it was very important for us to gather all online United members in different social activities like simple fika every week, after works and demos with a lot of love bombing.
Wow, more love bombing to the people, I would say. But what was the outcome of this change management work that you all were part of?
The extensive work resulted in a new organization where new product teams were defined with different responsibilities than before. We defined what kind of resources were needed in each team, and the team members made a so-called self-selection. This was in April last year. But they chose by themselves which team to work in. The team members in the product teams for the web shop and métier came from both consumer market and online IT.
So 2 of the teams were feature teams working with the web shop and the self-service dashboard. But there was also another team created called Horizon. What was the purpose of that team, Daniel?
Yes, I mean, unlike other teams that focus on feature building, Horizon takes a step back and looks at the bigger picture instead, ensuring like tre.se is always working with the latest technology and also like using best practices when implementing it. It also leads other major initiatives such as changing architecture, infrastructure, or which framework we're going to be choosing as well. It really plays a very important role in the team, and since we're making sure that we're always one step ahead on the curve. Since I'm part of that team, I can say that we'll be continue working to deliver the best tre.se out there for our customers.
Okay, good to hear. So, the self-selection and the creation of the new teams took place 1 year ago, as a result of the long journey that still went quite fast. And since then, we have continued developing the online United collaboration. And I would say we are quite unique within our organization to work this tight with our business. We share the floor 9 in Trehuset, working side by side, and stakeholders from consumer markets are always present in our agile work. We are at a quite good place now, even though we have much more to learn and adjust to. Continuous improvements around routines, processes, meeting efficiency, or how to write clear and understandable sprint tickets are present every day. We have left our unpretentious demo sessions where the purpose was to build trust, community, and relations through openness and love bombing, as Pia mentioned. And instead, we have moved the demos into the sprint retrospectives together with stakeholders for more constructive dialogue and feedback. Now we feel that we are safe enough in our teams to do that. The teams are multicultural with people from all over the world. We work in a hybrid setup, 3 days a week at the office. 5 out of 9 employed developers are female, and the 6th will join in a couple of weeks. We're 50-50 women and men in the IT online team. We work continuously with keeping our tech stack updated, as Daniel mentioned, with latest technologies and versions, and most modern tools and frameworks. And we are eager to use best practice now. 1 day a month, we let go of the regular delivery work and focus on new skills during our education day. And we strive for doing a solid work this time, not taking shortcuts anymore. And that has resulted in us becoming the revenue machine that we were dreaming of. Essential to us is that we have had our strong culture to lean on and also had a lot of fun during this journey. We thought like challengers. We worked like champions. And we definitely acted like buddies during this challenging time. And we still do so every day. Because at the core of the success stands the collaboration, and we call it Online United. Because commerce and tech are only as strong as we are united and as weak as we are divided. Thank you very much for listening. And of course, if you have got any questions, we're glad to hear them or try to answer.
was Gatsby. So we React.js and Gatsby, yes. So we, yeah, I mean, we had previously React already, but we needed to adjust the architecture and using Gatsby. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we have business to business also. Not yet in this very tight collaboration, but we are working on improving those processes. Yes? Yeah.
I think because we're always trying to, like for me, it was very interesting to work on the technology that Tre was using at that time. The architecture of that was decided to use all these cool tools. I really wanted, I was already trying that in my personal time. And to do that on a real life scenario on a website such as big as Tre, I think that makes it very what's the word? Yeah, you want to be there. You want to use those tools. Yes.
Yes. Great. Anything more? Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you repeat the question,
Yeah,
please?
I can repeat the question. Yes, since we migrated to the new architecture and the new stack, if we have seen any improvements on performance. Yes, we actually in Horizon, this team, we look into performance on the site. Since it's a web shop, you want it to load as fast as possible. So one of the things with static site generation, as I mentioned, is that there's no server calling other systems. So that it's a millisecond that takes to call and get the data back. Since that process is gone, then the site can just be sent back to the user even faster, and it will load very fast. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, exactly what you are saying there. We have front-end developers, back-end developers, business analysts, product owners, and UX designers from the consumer market side in our agile teams, and testers, of course,
Yes.
and an IT product owner that leads the operational work for all the teams at PIA. So, yeah.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Daniel. Describing the developer experience, how is it different today from when you started? Major differences.
That's a good question. I'll repeat it. So how's the developer experience since I started to now? I mean, when you work in such a big site, it's a lot of code. So it's a lot of files that we need to read. And the way we try to do it is that we use a way of working on developers that is called a monorepo, which is all of the code lives in one spot. So it's easier to share knowledge between them, and it's not like a developer needs to remember, oh, where did I see this, or where should I find those answers. So the developer experience is something that is not just there and it's good or bad. I think it's something that we have to work on on a daily basis. And in Horizon, we try to do that and keep on updating, because if you stop updating something, then it starts to become very frustrating for the developers to work with something that works like that in terms of coding. So yeah, I would say we're trying to have the best developer experience as well, to be able to retain the talent as well. Yes. Yep.
Yes, please.
I don't think we have had any incidents after that.
Yeah, I mean,
At
not
this-
major,
No,
at least, no.
Not of a major size,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, as I said, we have. It was a bit hard to decide like do we draw the line on the Horizon team in terms of like are we like a R&D team, research and development, or are we maintainers only and what's it called, firemen that we just help seize the fire. We wanted to have a separated like leg to be part to give this developer experience maintenance to keep it like the code the cleaner everything is in the room, the better it's going to be for newcomers to come and put new things in the room. So we saw that need basically, and someone needed to look on, okay, there's a new tool or there's a new technology because it goes so fast, we'll know here, and we need to play with it as soon as possible and try to do proof of concepts and show the other developers. We have front-end forums once a week, and we share this kind of knowledge or initiatives like, hey, what do you think of if we shift to this or that? So yeah, I would say basically that's our major responsibility, to developer experience and at the same time take care of the site that it works. Yeah, so my teammates, we all are familiar not only with front end, so we need to know a bit more of architecture, like infrastructure, how to host sites, how to scale a site as well. As I said, this kind of solutions, there's already new ones in place that we are looking into to migrate to, that is sort of a hybrid solution between server side and static. Yeah, the background, I wouldn't say full stack because we're not really building APIs, but we need to be aware of creating pipelines for the developers to ship the code in production, and that it goes smooth and that nobody complains about it, basically. Yes. Good question.
Yes. And there was a question here as well.
Yeah. Do you want to answer?
We didn't migrate, we didn't take over the code, so we built everything from scratch. And the designers there at the online department at Consumer Market, there new UX designers were recruited. So we didn't migrate anything. We built everything from scratch. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Question is, what do we use for backend systems?
Okay.
I mean, we use Spring Boot and Java in all our major APIs, but we also work a lot with, like, in terms of communication protocols, we use both REST and GraphQL. But if you want to go a bit more specific on like pricing, what do we use on stuff like that, payments, I'm not the right person to answer, but there's people in this room that I can tell you who can help you with that.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, over there.
What is an IT product owner? Yes. It's for me. I have 3 teams, and what I do very much about. I plan many things, and you could say I have several backlogs. So I have the backlog from the online team at Consumer Market, and I have also a backlog from other stakeholders in the business. So I work with prioritization between them, mainly planning what the different teams need to work with on now. So I'm the one who planned before planning sessions and so on. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions. Really nice to see that big interest.
Yes.
We will be around if you have any more questions later. So, right, I think we're done. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you so
joining.
much.
Yeah, thank you.